friends? Welcome back to Mental Health Chat, which is a video series that I've started doing on YouTube. Just talking about things having to do with mental health and wellness. And today I wanted to talk about medication. So of course the medication I'm referring to is anti-anxiety and anti-depressant medications. Those are also known as SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Basically what SSRIs do is they increase your levels of serotonin in your brain, and serotonin is like the chemical messengers in your brain. It helps alleviate some of the symptoms of depression and anxiety. The strange thing about like anti-anxiety and antidepressant medications is there is such a stigma against them, both from outside people that are not dealing with depression or anxiety, and I think that there seems to be a lot of stigma that people have against themselves about taking any kind of medication. I will say I have been on medication for 11 and a half years now, so I am definitely an advocate for like doing what you need to do to be happier. And I think some of the outside stigma comes from people thinking that you should do other things in order to feel better rather than rely on any kind of medication. I remember when I went to a free personal training session several years ago, which was probably my first mistake just right there. And I remember sitting down with the personal trainer, because that was kind of the first part, is talking about like what your goals were and like what you wanted to achieve. I, was honest with him. I was on birth control. I was taking like an antidepressant, and I told him, I said, I have a really hard time losing weight because both of those medications make it harder to lose weight. So as we're going through and I'm telling him my goal weight and what I wanted to achieve out of, I guess, working out more, at the end of it he said, now, and he said it as if this was like this big like mind-blowing mic drop moment. Now if you think you got to your goal weight and you were feeling better about how you looked, do you think you need to take antidepressants anymore? And I just wanted to be like, yes, because I have a chemical imbalance in my brain. You effing moron. I really do think that that is such a like perfect antidote for the mentality that a lot of people seem to have towards medication, and really the mentality that people seem to have towards depression and anxiety in general. But the crazy thing to me has always been, if somebody has high blood pressure or diabetes or some kind of heart condition, you wouldn't tell them, oh, you've got diabetes, well, don't take any kind of medication for that. Just, just eat better. Like, don't you think if you ate better, you wouldn't need to take this anymore? No. Why are antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications the thing that people point to and say that's not necessary, that's not medically necessary? It's just so frustrating to me. And like I said, I've been on some sort of medication since I was 18. And I'll tell you a little bit about kind of my journey with medication, because I'm definitely not on the same thing that I started on. When I was first diagnosed with depression and anxiety, they put me on Prozac. I was on Prozac for a good couple of years, maybe a year and a half or two actually, and it seemed to be working as far as helping my symptoms, but like I was saying earlier, weight gain and I guess like sluggishness and loss of libido are some really big side effects when it comes to a lot of antidepressants. So I got to the point where I wanted to see what my other options might be. Even though Prozac made my symptoms better, some of the side effects I didn't love. I started on, I want to say Cymbalta. And Cymbalta, I didn't see as good of a results with my symptoms as I did with the Prozac, so I switched off of that. I think I went back to the Prozac, but I can tell you that I've tried Prozac, Cymbalta, Wellbutrin, which Wellbutrin I realized really just only addresses the depression and not the anxiety. This was last summer that I tried the Wellbutrin and felt just so like unbelievably anxious all the time, and then kind of realized afterwards that it did not address any of my anxiety symptoms. I am now on Zoloft, and Zoloft seems to be doing well. I think the biggest takeaway is that there is no perfect medication when it comes to anything. You have to kind of weigh out what the benefits versus the drawbacks are. And it's like, okay, I'm, 10 pounds heavier than I'd like to be, but I'm like feeling happy and able to deal with stress in a healthy way. Like, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make because I want to feel happy. And so I think I've gotten to a pretty good place with the Zoloft, that it, seems to be helping my symptoms. The side effects aren't too bad. But that's just what worked for me. I think that's one of the reasons people have such a hard time with going on medications, is because what works for one person is going to be different for another person, because everybody's brain chemistry is different. And I guess it's not really as exact of a science when it comes to being very straightforward with like, here is exactly what's going on in your brain and here's the medication that's going to suit it best. It really is trial and error, and I think people get frustrated with that trial and error. And I think one of the other reasons people seem to be resistant to medication is I've heard people say that it makes them feel numb or like emotionless or like a zombie. And I am not a doctor and cannot tell you medically what to do because I'm not a medical professional, but it does take trying different things to figure out what's right for you. Very rarely I've heard in this situation for people, and I'd love to know your comments below as far as if you're on medication, how many did you try before you got the right one? Do you feel like it's overall helped you? But I very rarely have heard from somebody that's on medication that says that it, like the first one that they tried was the exact one they needed. You do have to try even different dosages of the same medication. It really is a process, but it's a process that's worth going through if it's going to make you feel better and if it's going to make you healthier. The interesting thing I think about medication is a lot of times you get to the point where you're feeling better, so you feel like you don't need it, so you stop taking it. And 9 times out of 10, that's just gonna put you back to that initial spot where you needed medication. I know this because I did that. I think I was probably maybe like a sophomore or junior in college. I had been on medication for maybe a year and a half or 2, and decided like, well, I'm feeling okay, I don't think I need this. And so I took myself off of it, which, side note, you should never do. If you are going to go off your anti-anxiety or anti-depression medication, please make sure that you're doing it with your doctor's blessing and with your doctor's instructions, because a lot of times you need to kind of wean yourself off of it. It's not something that you should stop cold turkey. So if that's something that you think that you want to do, please just consult your doctor, because they will be able to tell you the best way to get off of that. But I decided that I was all of a sudden Dr. Crowley, which, I'm like... I don't know why I thought I was qualified to make that decision, but I decided that I was going to stop taking my medication. And truly, I felt completely different not being on the medication. And I'll make a separate video kind of talking about what my symptoms are. But I could absolutely tell when I went off my medication that I took several steps backwards. That was the only time that it took for me to be like, all right, we tried that. Like, it's okay for me to be on this for the rest of my life if that's what it takes for me to have a healthy, happy life. And even now, because I'm just a forgetful person, I'll have stretches of 2 or 3 days where I forget to take my medication, and even then I notice a difference. Even then I will have a moment of being like, why is this bothering me so much? Like, why do I feel just such an overwhelming anxiety about something that's completely disproportionate to what the situation is? And a lot of times I realize, like, crap, I forgot to take my pills the last couple of days. That's exactly why I'm feeling like this. And I get back on it and I feel okay. So I guess when it comes to medications, my biggest thing is please don't get discouraged. If a, medical professional, if a psychiatrist says, that they think you would benefit from going on some kind of SSRI, and the first one, even if the first couple don't have the results that you want, please don't get discouraged. Please keep trying, because it is, it is not an immediate fix. And a lot of times it takes a while for it to be in your system before you start feeling better. So it just takes time, and it can be really hard to be patient with it, but it is worth it in the end. And if you're somebody that, you know, is unsure about medication, or you know, feel any kind of like shame about feeling like, and I know that it feels like this because I felt like it, like I should be able to handle this without help. I should be able to, you know, handle like my sadness or my anxiety without having to take medication for it. And if I take something, then it must mean that I'm like weaker than other people. Like, that's such complete and utter bullshit. And yes, there are a lot of things that you can do, either, you know, aside from or in addition to medication, to keep yourself in a positive headspace, whether it's yoga or exercise or, you know, art or writing music. There's lots of things that you can do to help keep yourself feeling good and give yourself a creative outlet for any kind of, you know, hurt or angst that you're feeling. And I'm sure that there are people out there that have been able to do that as an alternative to medication, and that's great for them if that's what works for them. But just don't look at somebody else and say, well, that needs to be what I do because it worked for them, because everybody's different, and what works for somebody else might not be what works for you. But you should give, you know, whatever it takes a chance to be able to work for you so that you're doing something good for yourself. So yes, that is my 2 cents on medications. I am pro because it has worked well for me. As always, please let me know in the comments what you guys want me to talk about in these kind of videos. And I love you. Stay happy, stay healthy. Bye.